Chapter 4 Brutal Honesty. The sound of footsteps came up behind me, and I felt somebody place their hand on my shoulder. I blinked, turned around, and saw that it was Jessie with Jordan at his side. They were both smiling at me in a way that was a stark contrast to my facial expression. I tried to smile back at them, but I felt so crushed by the event that had just occurred that my mouth couldn't move. "It's all right," Jessie said reassuringly. "Larry's probably worried for you, and he probably thinks you won't do very well." I sighed and stared out of the window. I felt so untrustworthy and useless, and I swallowed a lump. Even my best friend in the whole world didn't have faith in me, and I supposed that my theories of his reaction had been correct. "But for what it's worth," Jessie carried on, "we think you're going to do pretty good." I finally cracked a smile that had been lying at the bottom of my stomach, and I felt very honoured to have this compliment handed to me like it was a box of chocolates. Maybe this wasn't too disappointing after all, because Larry may not have wanted to give an opinion or praise me or whatever, but at least someone had complimented my potentially good decision. Well, I knew who I was taking to Australia then. "I can kind of see why Larry left like he did though," Jordan said. "There are a lot of challenges you have to face on that show." Oh yes. I remembered Friday night vividly, and I remembered every single thing I had to consider, because I was going on TV in front of millions, if not tens of millions of people. It was going to be very rough and hard at times, but now I had found myself as someone who is invincible and brave, and I was going to stick at it. However, I could sort of see where Jordan was coming from, but on the other hand, I disagreed with Jessie. Larry didn't look sad or worried or anything for that matter. Instead, he looked quite miffed and angry, which indicated that I had made a bad decision and I was stupid. I scrunched up my face thinking about that, because not to brag, but I thought I was pretty smart, and I didn't do anything unless I was absolutely certain. I was actually quite astounded that even after 6 years of us being friends, Larry hadn't yet realised that. "I know," I replied to Jordan. "There is a lot to face, but I will do my best to succeed at every trial." "Well, that's if I get chosen for anything." "Don't say that," Jessie said. "You're stronger than you look." I almost chuckled when Jessie said that, because I remembered the times where whenever somebody was really annoying me, or if I very strongly despised them, I wouldn't hurt that somebody physically. Instead, I would stare at them in a way that people used to describe as my signature death stare, which it was. At the time, I was quite proud of myself that I had found a way of inflicting intangible pain to other people without getting into trouble at school, and I still was now, because I still experienced people who would always pick on me for having sensitive hearing, being boring, and having no mother. By good fortune, my death stare was quite easy to pull. All I had to do was half close my eyes, half pucker up my lips, and widen my left nostril a little bit, and boom, my secret weapon would be activated. I actually smiled upon thinking about that, because it related to Jessie's last sentence impeccably, and that made me feel like a very powerful person. Silent, yet so powerful. "Oh, thanks," I said, puffing out my chest. "You guys have actually boosted my confidence quite a bit, and I really appreciate that. Unlike Larry." For a brief moment, I almost glared, because I felt so degraded that I had been misjudged by him. But I remembered that Larry was my best friend, and he was maybe acting like this for a reason. Possibly a positive reason, but whatever it was, I had no idea. "He could be really worried about you, you know," Jordan stated. "To him, it's probably going to be a very long 3 weeks. And besides, Australia is all the way on the other side of the world." When Jordan said this, I felt a bit sick, and I cast my mind back. I remembered myself as a 7-year-old and moving all over the continent, from Romania to Bulgaria to the UK, and that in itself was a 1,000-mile distance, and a 6-hour flight if I was correct. But going to Australia? That would be even longer and further away, and to think that I was going to be 9,000 miles away from my comfort zone. Oh, I felt a little wobbly. "Ludwig, are you all right?" Jordan asked, looking worried, which I didn't blame him for in the slightest, because I must have looked quite pale and faint. I suddenly came back to life and shook my head rapidly. Yeah, sorry, I replied. I've just realised how scary this actually is. I won't see you guys for 3 whole weeks, and I'll be sticking with people I've never met before. It'll be quite uncomfortable there because I won't know who to trust. At that moment, I must have looked quite stressed because Jesse patted me on the back, and it looked as if he was trying to act like the bigger person and comfort me despite his short height. Don't worry about it. Just try and have as much fun as possible, and before you know it, you'll be home again. He took hold of my arm and turned me towards the window. And as long as the stars are shining in the sky, we'll always be there with you. I smiled. I completely understood that Jesse was trying to help me and comfort me, but his choice of words and his high-pitched voice were impossible to take seriously during this situation. What? Jesse asked when I started chuckling. Nothing, I replied, covering my mouth with my hand. No, don't hide it. What is it? It's just that thing you just said. It didn't sound right, but I really appreciate your help. Jordan started to smile as well, and he raised an eyebrow at me. Do you kind of understand Larry's feelings now? I nodded whilst sighing. Yeah, I was a terrible friend to think that he didn't have faith in me. I should have known he was worried, and I think I should go and talk to him. Well, Jordan said, taking a brief but discreet glance at his phone in his blazer pocket. You've got 3 minutes until the end of lunch, so... I didn't need to listen anymore. I grabbed my books and pencil case and hurried out of the doors of the canteen, intending to find Larry and apologise within the 3 minutes. My first thought was that maybe he was in the library, because that was often a nice place to sit. However, it wasn't a nice place to be if you wanted privacy and time to be alone with your thoughts. Even so, I checked up there just in case, but he wasn't sitting in any of the seats or any of the computer chairs. Instead, there were sixth formers discussing their qualifications, Year 10 girls laughing and joking, and Year 7s playing chess. But no Larry. Right, okay. That was probably about a minute and a half wasted. Now I had another minute and a half left. Thinking quickly, my second thought was that maybe Larry could be in the toilets, so I hurried down the stairs, though being careful not to go too fast, otherwise I would stumble and fall. As luck would have it, the nearest toilets were only just through the double doors and straight ahead, so I pushed them out of my way and briskly walked down the corridors, being wary that there were other kids hanging around there and they would probably think I was hurrying to go to a lesson if I ran. Before long, I reached the nearest toilets. I heaved the heavy door open and let out an exhausted sigh because of how quick I had been moving round the school. Once I caught my breath, I got down on my knees and peeped through the gap at the bottom of each cubicle. Under one, there was absolutely nothing, but when I looked under the other cubicle at the end, I saw a pair of feet, and to my horror, I saw the right leg was shaking uncontrollably, so Larry was probably in there. Larry, are you in there? I asked, tapping my fingernail against the door, just to be sure. There was silence for a moment before there was a little answer. Ludwig? Yeah, it's me, I replied. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't get any further before the door unlocked and Larry stepped out of the cubicle. He put a hand to his mouth and started chewing his fingernails. That's a really dangerous TV show, he said. I don't think you should have signed up for it. What? I said, confused. I didn't see an advertisement. A presenter phoned me first. I had no idea this was going to happen. Larry crossed his arms. Right, so you had no idea it was going to happen at the time, and you were unsure about it, yet you decided to say yes just so you wouldn't humiliate yourself in front of a celebrity. I furrowed my brow and opened my mouth in light shock. What the hell? By now, I was quite frustrated and fairly appalled that Larry had accused me of all people of doing such a thing, and if there was one pet hate I had, it was being accused of things I was innocent for. Right, what's your game? I asked sternly. What is it? And for the record, I spent at least 6 minutes considering my decision, so don't even go there. What makes you think that this is a bad idea? What makes you think I did the wrong thing? Because you're a coward, Larry shouted, which caused me to close my eyes from the noise. After I recovered, I stared at him in disbelief. I'm sorry to break it to you, he said. But you are. I mean, you have sensitive hearing, your anger gets triggered easily, and you're not good with lots of things happening at once. What I'm trying to say is, you're not fit for this sort of thing. I think you should tell these people that you've changed your mind. And why should I do that? I demanded within an instant. Surely I'm allowed to make my own decisions. Larry let out a shaky sigh. I'm worried about you, Lud. A lot of bad things will probably happen to you, and I don't want to see that happen while I'm not here to give you comfort. I scoffed and actually chuckled quite a bit. Yeah, obviously you're so worried when you're insulting me. I turned away from Larry and began to walk out of the toilets, and annoyingly, Larry followed me. I've had enough of this. It's my decision and I'll change it if I want to, which isn't happening. I stopped and turned round, which caused Larry to halt, and we both became face to face. Do you hear me? I said, raising an eyebrow. It isn't happening. Lud, please, Larry protested. Just listen to me for a sec. I'm trying to help you. I'm really worried about you. By now, I was near the end of the corridor, and I wrapped my fingers around the bar of the door. Well, thank you so much, I shouted back at him sardonically, because I'm really feeling your benevolence. And with that, I pulled back one of the double doors, briefly feeling a sense of surprise at how easily I had done so. But still, my eyes and face were blazing, so I stormed off through the doors, leaving Larry behind.